My name is Lynn Woolsey, and I've been a member of Congress since 1992. 30 years ago, I was a welfare mother. Even though I was working full-time, I could not make ends meet. Without any options, I turned to welfare for assistance. With the help of welfare, I was able to add to my meager income in order to feed and clothe my 3 young children. Today, my children are grown, and I am a member of Congress. All across the country, you hear stories similar to mine. Women who were abandoned by their husbands, yet made a better life for themselves and their children thanks to the welfare safety net. But let's face it, the welfare system is far from perfect. Getting through the system can be a grueling and humiliating process. Benefit levels force families to live on incomes far below the poverty line. Opportunities to escape poverty through education are very limited. You are about to meet 4 women, just like you and me, who have struggled out of poverty with the help of welfare. These women will let you into their lives and share their hopes, their dreams, and their challenges. Through their experiences, we will explore some of the reasons people need welfare and the purpose it serves. Their stories reflect a spectrum of experience that cuts across race, religion, region, work history, and education. Some think that the system is fine just the way it is, but I believe we can do much better. We can't measure the success of welfare reform only by the number of people who have left the system, but instead, we must measure how successful we've been in breaking the cycle of poverty.
That I was brought up in, we didn't have really a negative stereotype so much about people who are on welfare. My grandfather had been a terrible alcoholic, and my grandmother had to go on assistance a couple of times, like around the Depression time. They lived in like old rail cars. So, for a couple of years, it was really poverty.
I had never been asked if I wanted to go to college. It just wasn't a value for a young Mormon girl. It was simply to raise a family and maybe work a little bit in secretarial or waitress or something like that. I came from a family of working class people, and there really wasn't any other person except for one uncle who had a college degree, certainly no women. I got engaged and I got married about a month before I turned 18, so I was just 17. We lived in this small town for about a year before relocating to Salt Lake City. When I was almost 20, I had my first child, and then 2 years later, we had moved back to southern Utah, and we actually had been separated. I went back to my husband for a period of time out of a family obligation kind of thing, trying to make it work as a family, and I just constitutionally did not have it in me, because my mother, throughout my childhood, had suffered through years of depression, and I just saw, at least for me, my perception was that that's all that lay ahead of me, was babies and depression. I was working as a waitress, but it was really, really hard because I was taking full load of school, working at nights, and then I had 2 small children. And so it was just really, really tough. One day when I went out to get in my car, it was gone. And I was like, I thought it had been stolen. So I called the police and I'm going, my car is just gone. I went out to get in and it's gone. And he said, hold on, ma'am. Well, a couple of minutes he came back and he said, your car's been repossessed. I'm like going, what? How could it possibly be repossessed? And it just never occurred to me that my ex-husband would not make the car payment, which was part of our child support arrangement, that he would make the car payment and give me $100 a month. There was no way that I could be that vulnerable again. I was taking my schooling so seriously, and I knew that it was the only way I was going to be able to provide for my family. When kind of the rug was pulled out from under me, I realized that I needed to do something different so I could have more stability. In a really, it's funny that you would say go on welfare to have more stability because you really get jerked around a lot. However, it was more stable for me because it wasn't personal. I soon learned that I had to jump through lots and lots of hoops, and also that I had to appear less smart. I had to dress down. I had to be parsimonious with information because it seemed like anything that you said could be used to somehow make you ineligible to apply for the programs. You know, I think being on welfare affected my relationship with my children actually in a positive way because I knew that I could depend on the cash assistance. I knew that I could depend on the child care. I knew that I could depend on the food stamps. And so those things weren't constant worries. For the most part, as humiliating as it was, it served me and my family well. In my opinion, women on welfare, they're the parent who's sticking around with the kids, and they need support. We need to stop looking at individuals as in some way less than, and we need to focus on the issue of poverty, not on individuals, not on reducing caseloads, but looking at actually reducing poverty, because my experience is in all of the taxes that I've paid back over the years since I got my education, and through the time that I retire, it will be way over 1,500% return on the investment.
There was a time when I would walk into the house and people would grab their purses because they knew that I was going to take something out of it because I needed to go use. 12 years ago, I was literally living homeless on the streets, strung out on crack and alcohol. So my life has changed tremendously. I got to a point where I just couldn't use no more. It was really, really bad, where I was sleeping in abandoned houses and apartment buildings, eating out of the dumpster. I had begun to be arrested. I had gone to college 3.5 years. I played basketball in college. I made good grades. I had started selling drugs, and then I started using drugs, and I started having babies. So I knew I had to do something different in my life. During the midst of that time, I had gotten married to a guy that was like my drug partner. We would sell and use drugs. I had violated my probation, and of course I missed the court date because I was using, and when you're using, you know, court is just really not an issue. And I came home and I told my grandmother that I wanted to go turn myself in, and I did. And when I went to court and I went before the judge, I admitted that I had a problem. I knew I had to do something different. So whatever they told me to do at the rehabilitation center is what I did. I went to the meetings, I listened. I didn't believe that it was going to work for me. I just could not see any possible way that I could change or put my life together. But every day that I didn't use, things got better. During that time, that program also had different linkages to community-based organizations that were there to assist women with kids. So they made an appointment for me to go down to the food stamp office so I could get at that time what was AFDC, Assistance for Families with Dependent Children. So between the monies that I was making from working 20 hours a week, the AFDC that I was getting in the food stamps, we were able to live and have food on the table and have clothes. I went back to school to finish my bachelor's degree, and I would work in the daytime and go to school at night. I graduated Broward Community College in 1996 with an Associates of Science degree in Business Administration. Well, once we got this house, it was like such a big paradigm shift for the whole family. I mean, the first night that we came here, we slept without without furniture. I mean, the kids were just so excited. We were just really excited because we now had something other than a car that was ours. So my life has changed drastically. It's been a hard journey. A lot of struggles, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But all for a good reason. All for the purpose of building me and making me into the woman that I am today. Into a leader, into a mother, into a wife, into an advocate. A part of my destiny is to ensure that other people that are going through the things that I went through have an easier, softer way. So today my life is totally different. I haven't had a drink or a drug in 12 years. I'm happily married. I have a wonderful relationship with my kids. I'm getting the opportunity to see them grow up and not hear about it, which would have been the case if I would have continued to use. A lot of times when we hear like welfare queens, people often think it's some young girl with a lot of babies, with different daddies, illiterate, ain't got nothing going for herself, don't want to be nothing, just want to have babies and live for free. I see it totally different. When I look at myself and other women that have been on welfare, that have been able to move themselves out of poverty with the help of that temporary assistance, I think of a leader. I think of a person that's good with budgeting. I think of a person that's good with managing time. I think of a person that through trial and error has developed some really good life skills. I didn't come from a family where we have generations and generations of people on welfare. My grandmother came from a large family of 13 brothers and sisters where they had a farm, they learned how to work. All of our families, we have these things where there were times when the storm came and it rained real heavy. So whether the experience is drugs, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's HIV and AIDS, whether it's just simply having an accident on a job where your situation changes. Overall, there are a lot of people that go through those things and bounce back. But because society teaches us that if we struggle, then we're less than, we're failures, we don't talk about those things. So if somebody is watching this video and they're saying you're an exception, I would say, talk to some more people.
When you come here from someplace else, you feel really proud that you came to work and not that you didn't come to live off the rest of the society. My mother and my father, they met here in New York. So it wasn't like, they came over together, and their situation was kind of different because my mother was the only one that was sending money home to her family. The people who were around me, most of them either got public assistance and that was their family's income, or worked but got food stamps and Medicaid and that kind of thing because income was still pretty low.
When I was a child, going to the store with food stamps was really embarrassing for me. And I don't know why it was, because there were so many people that had food stamps. It wasn't like it was an uncommon thing. I wasn't embarrassed to go to the welfare center at all, and everybody there is obviously in the same situation. maybe most of the people in the store were in the same situation, but there was something about paying with food stamps that just made it seem like, well, everybody knows what my family situation is.
My mother, she was really against that, like food stamps or Medicaid or anything like that.
She was really sick and she wasn't able to work. So my father was the only one working, and that was the only income in the household. And then when he left, that was gone. When you're that age, you're very self-conscious, and you go to school, you see everybody, they have all this nice clothes that you can tell is really good quality, and if you don't have it, then, you feel bad. I remember going with my mother to the welfare office, and from there going to the doctors that screen you to see if you can't work. And she had to blow into this machine, and it was like she was blowing into the machine, and the nurse was saying, you have to blow harder, you have to blow harder. And the whole thing was like she couldn't blow any harder, so I had to tell her she can't blow any harder. It was, it's really humiliating to have to, to tell somebody something like that, and they're trying to make you, they're making an effort to try to make it seem like you're healthy enough so that you'll have to work. It's so strange to see someone talking about your mother in a language that she doesn't understand and kind of giving this very cold, analytical description of what they see. It makes you feel like instead of your mom being able to protect you, you have to protect her. She never really told me what her feelings were about it, but I could see that it was really uncomfortable. As anyone could imagine what it would be like to have somebody sit there and evaluate you and talk about you in a language that you don't know into a tape recorder.
One day, I really couldn't get out of school that day, so I didn't go with her, and she went by herself, and she ended up waiting for such a long time, and nobody was calling her, and she didn't know, she couldn't really even find somebody who to ask. She would just kind of wait and wait and wait. And then I remember she told me she asked this guy, and he like walked to the to the back area where they were not supposed to be, because it's also very like, oh my God, you can't walk in this area. This is where the workers are. So he walked back there with her, and he was like, she's been sitting here all day and nobody's seen her. And everybody was really upset that they had walked back there. But somebody finally saw her. It's another level of like shame because workers already have these preconceived notions about you, and not just workers, but society in general. It makes it seem like anybody who's getting benefits, it's their fault. And then if you don't speak the language, then it's like, oh, well, why didn't you speak the language? If you spoke the language, then maybe you wouldn't be in the situation. There's thousands of people in New York who could get food stamps and don't want to get it, like my mom, who could get it for such a long time and just would not go. One consequence that I think it has is that people are relying so much more heavily on food pantries and soup kitchens, which can give food, but that's not enough, or that's not the same as having food stamps that you can shop with, that you can go and get your own food with. So many people lost their jobs at the World Trade Center. A lot of them were immigrants, and many of them were also undocumented, and that group is particularly hard hit because they're now eligible for unemployment benefits. If before things were hard, but at least there was kind of a lot of work available, now jobs are so hard to come by, and the impact in immigrant communities is really, really huge, and there were a lot of immigrants who worked in the World Trade Center. It's not a very comfortable time to be an immigrant in New York now.
My father he wasn't hostile towards me, but he was very angry about the welfare system in general, would complain about women having kids and, when they were on welfare, and he really had a negative outlook about it. And I would remind him that when you're talking about these women, you're talking about me. And I applied for welfare in 1993 when my daughter was 1 month old because her father left. I learned a great deal about welfare when I was a kid. My parents divorced when I was 11, and because my mom had always been a homemaker, which is what you did in the early 70s, she did not have the skills to earn a livable wage. And so she went on welfare. Once when I went in with a $10 food stamp coupon, I didn't have the booklet with me, and you're supposed to have the booklet, and cashier was very upset and yelling out, "You need to have the booklet for the food stamps." And I was 11 or 12. I was mortified. It became really important to me after that to not end up on welfare myself. And so for me, I think it was particularly difficult when I did need to get it. If there had been no welfare back when my daughter was a baby, I don't know. I probably would have lived in a shelter. I don't even like to think about it, really. It wouldn't have mattered how many hours I worked. I just didn't have the skills that necessary to earn a livable wage. My check was $362, and my rent was $365. And I had electric heat. It was not included in the rent. I did not have a housing subsidy. It was very difficult. I received shut-off notices all the time and had to be on the phone constantly with the electric company and the phone company and send them $10 and say, "Please don't shut everything off." And it was really tiring. I was on the housing subsidy waiting list, and I was also on another waiting list for Maine's Aspire program, which stands for Additional Support for Retraining and Education. One day, Diane, my child care provider, told me that she might be moving away. I was just getting so tired of these major catastrophes. You know, for some people, you may be losing a child care provider. If you're middle class, it's not that big of a deal. You just go find somebody else. Well, when you're on welfare and you can't pay for child care and your only free child care provider is going away, it's a big crisis. So I called Aspire again, and this time I said to the lady on the phone, "Listen, my child care provider is moving away, and she's been giving me child care for free because I've been on your waiting list for over a year now, and if I don't have child care, then I can't go to school and I can't go to work. And if I can't go to work, then I can't pay my rent. And if I can't pay my rent, I don't have a place to live, and I'm going to be homeless. And if I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to kill myself." Just like that. And the lady said, wait, just hold on, okay, wait. So, hold on just a minute, hold on," she was saying. And she made me hold on for like 3 seconds, and then she came back to the phone and said, okay, we can help you. I haven't received welfare now for a couple years, and I have great health care benefits. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I've got sick time, I have vacation time, I have free tuition, I have an office, I have a phone, I have little business cards. And it was really like being transformed into a new person, a person with money. I'm very proud of my accomplishments. And I'm proud that I can provide for my daughter, because we haven't received any child support ever. And I don't know if we ever will. But even if we don't, I know now that because I've been able to go to school and I have this job, that it's going to be okay anyway.
Jillian Stevens, PhD, Salt Lake City, Utah, is now a crisis trauma specialist. Rosalind Osgood, PhD, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is director of an economic development corporation. Maria Muentes, BA, Brooklyn, New York, is field coordinator of a food stamp outreach and application project. Michelle Alexander, MSW, Bath, Maine, is a mental health clinician. The 1996 Congressional Welfare Reform Act severely limits access to welfare. Many people seeking assistance today are unable to obtain much-needed benefits at all. Educational opportunities have been virtually eliminated. These women, who received assistance before welfare reform, have shared their experiences out of concern for those who find themselves in need of assistance now.